order. South Lyon Regular City Council meeting of March 14th, 2016. I'd like to have everyone rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call shows that all council members are present except Mayor Galis. Obviously, I'm not Mayor Galis. He's under the weather today, and I'd entertain a motion to excuse him.
I move that we excuse the mayor.
Second.
Moved and seconded to excuse the mayor. Is there any discussion on that? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries. Anything on the minutes of February 22nd, 2016? I asked for one correction, and that's already been made. Thank you.
Question?
Yes. Maggie?
Yeah, I had a question on that. Does the Open Meetings Act permit an amendment to the minutes outside of an open meeting? My research said that it didn't.
Pardon?
My research showed that you can't amend the minutes, the official records of the organization, unless it's done in an open meeting. If they're minutes of an
Are you-
open
are you-
meeting.
Well, they're draft
Are you-
minutes until we approve them, so.
Is your question about my?
No, just in general. It's just a
Okay.
general question. No, it has nothing, no. absolutely nothing.
I don't know the answer to that without researching it.
Okay.
I do know that the MML provides best practices for providing suggested amendments or revisions to draft minutes that I could certainly provide to council. But generally, my understanding is that the non-open meeting suggestions can be made. I would have to double check whether there are best practices as to how those are distributed and what information is made available. Certainly, the council should be aware of all of the changes being made.
Okay.
My
Thank you.
change was just a matter of changing a name.
No,
correcting a name.
it's not, no, please don't at all.
Any other changes?
I move the minutes as amended by Harvey's thing.
I'll second.
Moved by Kivel, seconded by Kramer. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Minutes are carried. Approval of bills. Any questions on bills?
I had one on, first off, I wanted to say thank you for moving the page numbers to not be in the punch hole. That was helpful. Page 2 of 6 in the invoices.
Page 2 of 6, I've only got.
Well, it was simply a simple one. There's a water cooler. I'm assuming that's in fire. You know how we ended up buying one for City Hall rather than paying a lease on one?
Yes.
I was wondering, doesn't it seem like it would make sense to do that there as well?
Did you get one at DPW?
No.
No, I'm not sure.
Is that yours, Mike?
I can speak to that also, because the police department has two. That is a quarterly bill, I believe, and it's a water filtering unit. It uses good, trustworthy South Lyon water, but it filters and chills it, and the cost is probably very similar to buying the water cooler and then paying to bring in the 5-gallon bottles, except we don't have the issue of having to carry in the bottles.
It's the same for ours too. It's not a bottle system, it's a filter system, and part of that is a service agreement on it, so
Mike, do you use that high-quality water?
we do.
Thank you.
So, yeah,
Just plug in one way or the other.
we looked into it, and it was actually easier for us because we didn't have to mess with the storage of the 5-gallon
Yeah, okay.
container.
Well, they're not apples to apples then, because I was thinking if we're just throwing a bottle of Abso-Pure or something on top of there, I think we paid $1.20 or $1.30 or something for the whole unit, so,
Yep.
okay, thank you. That's the only one.
Anyone else?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Maggie?
No, that's okay if you want to continue.
Are you done? Glenn?
No, yeah, I was just going to say, I approve.
I just had a quick question. It's on the payroll report. I don't understand what an insurance stipend is.
Those are for people that choose not to accept our medical insurance. They get paid a stipend for having insurance through their spouse.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Joe.
Just have a question on page 4 about the copier leases. I believe I asked this before, but do we have, how long is the contract? How many years is our contract for? And does the $1,500 charge, is that for all, we pay per copy, or is that a monthly fee?
I believe that's for all of our copy machines, and rarely do we go over what we pay. It's usually the same amount every time.
Okay. I'm just, not anything urgent, but just curious if there's,
There's a maximum number of copies before we do pay a per page fee on each copier.
okay?
So there is a monthly charge and a maximum amount of pages per month that we can do of both black and color. And we've, to my knowledge, never exceeded that per month.
Okay, that's perfect. Thank you.
I move the bills.
Support.
Moved by Kramer, supported by Kibble. Are there any further discussion on the bills? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Bills are approved. Approval of agenda. Lynn, are there any additions or corrections or
I
deletions?
don't have any.
Okay.
I'll move the agenda.
I'll support.
All right, the Kramer Kibble axis moves approval of the agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The agenda is approved. Now is the time we have for public comment. Anyone from the audience who would like to address the council, please come forward and introduce yourself with your address to the microphone.
Good evening, Council and Mayor Pro Tem, Mr. Waddle. Carl Richards, 390 Lennox. All good stuff. No sensitive issues tonight, and I'm so relieved. Okay, I got 4 things I want to mention to all of you, okay? One thing, we got a new business in town. And I've asked what the girls at the counter, okay, if they had a name for it, and they said they didn't. And that was on the recommendation of Lieutenant Sobek. He said, "It's got to be listed with a business permit." And I said, "No, they didn't do it yet." It's huge. It's a big. It looks big to me. It's just south of the Verizon store in the Bush Plaza, and it's right before you get to the gymnastic workout places. I know my square footage. It's got to be 15,000 square feet or more floor space on this business. It's all lit. It appears to be children's clothing, toddlers and maybe baby stuff, okay? And when I went by, I didn't have time to stop and peek in the windows. The lights were on, but there was probably 25, 30 people standing outside waiting to get in. And maybe there wasn't room for them to get in, or maybe they just open at 6 o'clock at night or something. I don't know. But anyway, isn't that a treat, people? We got a new business in town. We don't have many coming our way, that's for sure. At least it appears to me. That's all I know about it, folks, but I thought you'd be happy to know we got a new business, okay? Anyway, number 2, I want to say some praise, long overdue, for the ladies that work in City Hall, including Lynn, who's a very diligent and hard worker, that have helped me many times. And I try to give them a little break on things too. When it comes to graphics and too much copying, I head for the school, and they got machinery over there that does the job perfectly. And but the girls are so nice and helpful, not only to me but everyone. Ann, Judy, Phyllis, Lori, Lisa, they're very helpful, and I enjoy the cookies and the donuts too. Thank you very much, girls. Okay, item number 3. Okay, I want to thank our fire chief, Mr. Kramer here in the police department, and also the DPW for the big prompt service on the huge accident we had at the crossing up at where the motorists took out the railroad crossing Sunday morning. No one was seriously hurt, and they had the whole place cleaned up in 2.5, 3 hours, so I was told. I saw pictures of it on the computer in the police station. I didn't go up there and look at it, but it would have been all cleaned up by the time I got there. Plus, it was a rainy day. Anyway, thank you, Chief Kramer and
That's Chief Kennedy.
Mr.
Let's
Collins,
correct that.
Mr.
That's Chief Kennedy.
Chief Kennedy and Mr. Lloyd Collins, okay, in your department and Bob Martin's department. Anyway, I thought that was pretty good, okay? It was a terrible accident. Okay, that's enough, okay? That was the other issues are off the board tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Carl.
Anyone else like to speak at public comment? Seeing none, we'll close public comment, and we'll go on to old business. Consider the approval of the Solera lease agreement. Lynn?
Okay, this item was brought before the council first in December, and there was some concerns and questions about the way the lease was written. Since then, Councilwoman Kurzweil has chosen to withdraw her objections to the lease as written, and so I brought it back. It has the standard 2% increase on the lease rate, which would bring the two-year agreement to $9,144.36, paid in 12 equal monthly installments. It's a 2-year renewal at 318 West Lake Street. They're, at this time, choosing and wanting to stay at that location, and I think it's a good use of the city property, and we'd like to keep them there because keeping Solera centrally located in South Lyon keeps them using all of our city parks and properties and not relocating to other areas.
Sure.
Just a quick question. I don't know if this was discussed at the last meeting. I scooted out a little early, but in regards to the lease, the condition of the premises, what's going on with pest control? Is there pest control issues? I noticed in the bills that there was $58 spent twice by the city on this location. Is everything okay with it? What's the status of the premises? What's the condition?
That's routine, actually.
Is there, like, there's nothing wrong with it, though?
No.
It's preventive.
It's
Okay.
preventative pest control, just
Okay.
like we do with all of our buildings.
Okay, yeah, it's my first time seeing that, so I just wanted to clarify. Thanks for verifying that, guys.
Yep, no problem.
Anyone else?
No,
Maggie?
I'll make the motion.
I'll support.
Okay, I move to authorize the renewal of the lease agreement between the City of South Lyon and the South Lyon Recreation Authority for the property at 318 West Lake Street for a 2-year term, and authorize the mayor to sign the agreement.
Yeah, I support it. Thank you.
Moved by Kurzweil, supported by Rizzi. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Seeing none, the motion carries. Now into new business. First item we have is the resignation from the Parks and Recreation Commission of Jason Nezich.
Yes, the Parks and Rec Commission received last week a resignation email. He doesn't feel that he has the time to commit to the Parks and Rec Commission any longer at this time due to personal family commitments, so he is resigning. The Parks and Rec Commission will be looking for another member to complete them, but that will leave them one member right now.
All right.
That is the only open seat.
That is the only
Yeah.
open seat.
Any discussion on that? Get a motion?
A motion that we accept the resignation
I
and
second.
thank him.
Motion by Kibble and seconded by Didakis. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, no. And that motion carries and goes with our thanks. Next, we have a resolution declaring April 2016 Child Abuse Prevention Awareness Month. There's a copy of the letter from Care House in Oakland County and a copy of a proposed resolution. Is there any discussion on that? Is there a motion on the resolution?
I move we approve the resolution.
I'll second.
Moved by Kibble, seconded by Kramer. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The resolution passes. Thank you. Next, we have a resolution asserting the right of city council to approve or reject the master plan. Tim, I believe this is your item.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem and Council, the master plan is in the process of being reviewed and will be, I think there will be a public hearing at the next planning commission meeting, at which point they will consider whether to recommend approval to city council. In the Planning Enabling Act, there is a procedure for planning commission to make the final approval unless there's a resolution asserting that right at the city council level. In talking with Carmen Aventini, the city's planning consultant, and Kelly McIntyre, the planning director, we've been proceeding on the presumption and understanding that council will make the final approval. So this resolution is presented in compliance with the Planning Enabling Act and asserts that right, and that the planning commission will make a recommendation and council will make the final approval on a master plan.
Makes sense to me. Are there any questions?
I do have one
Yeah.
question. Do we have to do this on an annual basis, or every time, not an annual, but every time we redo the master plan, or once we do this resolution, that's it?
This resolution asserts that right, and you will, from that point on, any amendments, revisions, or so forth will come back to council for final approval.
Good question.
This is solely for master plans?
Correct.
Okay. And, yeah, so we haven't acted on that since 2008, so when it was enacted, makes sense.
Well, I'll make the motion then that we approve the resolution asserting right of city council to approve or reject the master plan.
I'll second that.
All right, moved by Kramer, seconded by Dudakis. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Number 4, consider approval of the first reading of an ordinance to amend Chapter 58 and add provisions regulating tobacco products, vapor products, and alternative nicotine delivery products. Once again, Tim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem and Council. This is a first reading on a proposed ordinance to expand, in South Lyon, this is largely based on the Youth Tobacco Act and in response to the gap in regulations relating to these vapor products and e-cigarettes type thing. The Lyon Township addressed this issue recently, so this proposed ordinance is based on the Youth Tobacco Act, what they've done, and there are 2 separate ordinances. You're going to deal with them one at a time, but one is to expand what is normally prohibited tobacco use and possession and so forth and furnishing to minors, and expand that to include the vapor products and alternative nicotine delivery products. So I don't know if there's questions or if you want me to go through this in detail. I certainly can do that. There was a lot of the purpose and findings was pulled from another community's ordinance, and I did not follow through to pull all of that, but I did find a Michigan Health Department publication regarding the e-cigarettes and related vapor products, which is in the packet materials as well. So clearly, there's a public health issue related to the nicotine products used through vapor products or alternative delivery systems. This generally prohibits use by minors, attempts to possess it, the attempt to purchase it, and it also deals with representations regarding their age in an attempt to try and acquire these. There are provisions regarding penalties, affirmative defenses, and there is also a provision dealing with that prohibits and makes a misdemeanor the furnishing of these products to minors as well. So, and I believe this is also repealing Section 58-217, which is the city's previous ordinance or existing ordinance regarding tobacco products, which makes them illegal to use, furnish, and so forth with respect to minors. So if there are any other questions,
Any questions of Mr. Willem?
I don't have a question, I've got a comment, though. I was happy to see in there that they address the idea that a minor can end up working in a store that does sell this stuff and it doesn't create any problems. I thought that was a good catch for them. You know, a kid doesn't lose his job because he can't grab a pack of cigarettes that somebody wants to buy, so the rest of it, I'm not quite as alarmed as some are, but
Tim, I reviewed this Youth Tobacco Act. Are we limited to a $50 fine per incident?
I believe so by statute.
Okay, I just want to make sure of that, because I thought $50 was a little light for a misdemeanor.
Well, you also see that this act is pushing the alternative penalties
Right,
through other
communities, right.
district court process.
Right.
those costs are more than $50 too, aren't they?
Yeah, they're responsible for the
Yeah,
payment of.
right,
but
so.
Right.
Wouldn't surprise me.
Maggie, please.
I had a question on this on the ordinance. It appears to be restricted, I could be wrong, so let me know if I'm wrong or not. It appears to be restricted to tobacco products and vaporizing. Is this strictly just nicotine?
Yeah, yes, so the way I understand this is it's tobacco, and I think the gap that's been left in the state and federal regulations is that the nicotine products that are chemical or liquid and used to vaporize nicotine may not be considered to be tobacco, which leaves open that gap that a minor may be able to possess, purchase, and someone could furnish those to a minor without violating the Youth Tobacco Act. So this expansion of from tobacco products to the vapor products and alternative nicotine delivery products expands it into that liquid nicotine and so forth.
But what about vaporizing other products other than nicotine?
Doesn't apply to anything other than nicotine.
I thought we were going to have an ordinance that was going to restrict vaporizing other products such as marijuana.
I wasn't under that understanding.
Okay.
I can certainly go back. I'm not sure that you would have first off, the marijuana, having a commercial sale of marijuana would likely be illegal, as the only allowed use in Michigan would be for medicinal use.
Well, I had an opportunity to speak with Coleman Young, the second, up in Lansing. And he is the sponsor of Senate Bill 813, which is moving through the legislature, which is going to legalize recreational use of marijuana. And I have the bill here, and we had a very, very good talk. He was wonderful to speak with. And I explained to him my concerns about this bill, is that the trend is to vaporize the marijuana. The real problem in vaporizing is not with nicotine, it's with the marijuana because of the high potency that it actually results in. So, and that's what I think Lyon Township was trying to get at through their vapor ordinance, was to slow down the access to vapor products, vaporizing things other than nicotine. So, and I told him that we were working on an ordinance, and you're more than free to call him and speak with him. He was just a wonderful, wonderful gentleman to speak with. And I understand why he is sponsoring this. I mean, I understand his rationale, although we disagreed, we were very civil about it. But he is going to also begin looking at some legislation up in Lansing that would somehow start addressing the vapor products. Because the real big concern is not with the nicotine at all. It's with the marijuana. And it looks like we may have recreational marijuana in the state in the next couple of years. I mean, I don't know.
Are you done?
Yes, sir, I am. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem?
Well, yeah, I think until if that bill actually becomes law, I think the focus of this was just directed towards tobacco use of vapor products by minors. And I think if at some point, that bill does pass recreational use of marijuana, that's something we could look at. But right now, it's a bill. I think the focus was on an establishment coming into Lyon Township off of Pontiac Trail. And that was our initial focus for this first reading, or this ordinance that we're proposing today. I'm fine with it as is, and in the event that we have to change it or amend it at a later date, that's fine. But I think this is at least the first step we can take to at least have some kind of control over minors using these vapor tobacco products. Thank you.
Thank you. Glenn, did you have something?
Well, no, in essence, that's what pretty much my view. I don't want us to project what our challenges will be in the future. I find it hard to imagine that this legislature will pass something like that right now, so I would prefer that we end up just dealing with the realities rather than trying to forecast what the concerns are.
So my question is, and one of my concerns is that when these products are being used, you don't know what's in it. So if that's THC, or as the judge explained, THC boiled down, or however they do it, or nicotine, or whatever it is, fruit flavor, you don't know. And my specific question for Mr. Wilhelm would be, in your note, it says that prohibit minors from possessing, using, purchasing tobacco products, vapor products, and alternative nicotine delivery products. So back to, I think the earlier question was, if it's not marijuana, can they still, and let's say it's not nicotine, can they still use a device that has theoretically, let's say, something without fruit flavor or water, whatever's in there? Is that okay to
It's my
possess?
understanding, I don't know a lot about these products, but some of them use water vapor, which would not, this ordinance would not apply to it. If you wanted to vaporize banana peels, this wouldn't apply to it.
Right, and that's kind of my concern, is that when especially the minors, have these devices, and we don't know what's in it, we're kind of back to square one. All we're saying is that they can't sell nicotine, so how do we prove, I guess you can't really prove what's in it.
Well, there would be the normal law enforcement process to ensure a product does or does not have nicotine in it, I suppose.
All I'm saying is, I think this is a good step, but I don't know if it goes far enough by defining the use of the actual paraphernalia. Because I don't know the drug laws, but from my understanding is, if you have paraphernalia, that is also a crime, correct? Possessing it. So I would like to see it taken a step further. I think this is just the first reading, but maybe that's something we can work through in between.
How would you take it further? I'm not sure I understand.
Well, so the way I'm reading it is that if you're using, and maybe I need clarification, but if you're using a device and it's not nicotine, as you say, banana peels or whatever, that's not in any violation if you're a minor, correct?
How would it be?
Yeah,
Well, it says the vapor products in minors, I thought.
Right, but if we don't know what's in it, you could theoretically use this device
I thought
and
it was
not prove
vapor
what's in it.
products without the nicotine aspect of it for kids, isn't it?
so
Ambiguous there.
is there direction from council to expand this to products? And I want to make sure I understand what the concern is here.
Yeah, my concern is that if you're still allowed to, it's using the paraphernalia, okay? Because in order to prove what's actually in there, that's going to be very difficult without knowing. So I would prefer if there's a way to write the ordinance where you could say minors are not allowed to use the paraphernalia. That way it would cut out any ambiguity of what's in there. Or possess the paraphernalia.
If you look at 58-273, prohibited conduct, number one is, well, if you start the full section, a minor shall not do any of the following: purchase or attempt to purchase a tobacco product, vapor product, or alternative nicotine delivery product. The second is possess or attempt to possess. The second is to use. And then we're going to get into the whole school property issue as well. So I'm not sure that this ordinance gets into it deals with the equipment part of it. It deals with the physical delivery system, and I would have to double check and I will take a closer look at it to see if it gets at the product that would be used. And I know we're confusing that word product, but the non-equipment part of what goes into and is actually heated up or burned or vaporized. I don't know that this ordinance gets into the regulation of that material.
Okay, so I'm sorry, let me ask again then. So if somebody using, let's say there's nothing illegal in this delivery system, would it be legal for a 16-year-old to be using this delivery system?
No, not under this ordinance.
No, it wouldn't. Okay. That I'm fine then, because what I wanted to double check was, let's say one of Lloyd's guys sees a teenager having this device in his mouth or whatever he's doing, however they do this, but then the teenager says, hey, this isn't THC, this isn't nicotine, this is fruit flavor. And
I do see your point, though, because the question or the issue may be, you see them with the physical equipment, and they say there's just water vapor in it. It's not a nicotine, doesn't have anything to do with nicotine, and I'm fine. I'll take a look at that.
Thank you. I kind of am a little uneasy just how we're left right now. I'd want to make sure it does address that aspect. Thank you.
Okay, Glenn?
By vapor products, does that loosely describe the hardware? Or is that whatever the goodies would be that are being vaporized?
Yeah, so the alternative, there's definitions in 58-272.
Oh, I don't remember seeing that.
They're alphabetical. The first one is alternative nicotine product. It means a non-combustible product containing nicotine that is intended for human consumption, whether chewed, absorbed, dissolved, or ingested by any other means. Vapor product is down at the end and is much more expansive and tries to cover so it's non-combustible product containing nicotine that employs a heating element, power source, electronic circuit, or other electronic, chemical, or mechanical means, regardless of shape or size, that can be used to produce vapor from nicotine in a solution or other form.
So that is the hardware. So if they have the hardware, they're in violation of this ordinance.
Well, I would say, I would also, reading the definition of the alternative nicotine product, it includes the non-combustible product that is for human consumption, whether chewed, absorbed, dissolved, or ingested, whether it's by breathing it, chewing it,
Right.
drinking it, or liquid. I think the product, if it contains nicotine, would be regulated under this and prohibited.
But the vapor product itself includes the hardware of the thing that heats up whatever creates the vapor. So they can't possess that and not be in violation of this.
I think you start to get into the nuance of whether a piece of equipment is.
Well, I mean, that's what the language just said.
If I may. Hey, Tim?
Yeah.
Under the definition of vapor product, if you take out the two words containing nicotine, would that then take it out of the Youth Tobacco Act?
Would
It's
it?
under, look at 58-272 under definitions.
Yep.
Last one says vapor product means a non-combustible product containing nicotine.
What about it?
No, if you take the two words containing nicotine out, because the issue is, it's only a vapor product if it contains nicotine and this type of thing. If you take
That's not
those-
what this says.
But if you take those two words out, containing nicotine, and you just leave it as vapor product means a non-combustible product that employs a heating element, would that cover the method that minors may use to ingest anything, regardless if it's nicotine or not?
That broadens it a great deal, but
Yeah, that's the issue. I mean, can you do that?
I'd like to see that, because like I said, I mean, it's going to be hard to prove if they're claiming that what they have is.
well, I hadn't actually concluded what I wanted to ask. I was hoping to ask Lloyd, how would your guys address this in the event that they see what they perceive to be a minor with this type of equipment whether it's nicotine
I was
or
hoping
not.
for a chance to
Yeah,
comment.
right.
Yes, I too, like Councilman Rizzi and Councilman Kramer, am troubled by the phrase containing nicotine in the first sentence under vapor product. And then there's also in the second sentence, or other container of nicotine. As long as those references to nicotine exist, I'm not aware of a field test that we have available for nicotine. There may be one, but we don't have it. If we come across a brown or green leafy substance that's been ground up, we can check very, very quickly and determine whether it's marijuana or not with a field test. With these e-cigarettes, it could truly be nothing but a USDA-approved fruit flavoring. So I would say possession of the device would be unenforceable for us because we can't prove what's in it. Unless, much like the narcotics paraphernalia ordinance, it doesn't, or law, it doesn't speak to a substance, it speaks to the device or the paraphernalia itself. And therefore, I too would prefer that we not limit it to a delivery device or a device containing nicotine.
Now, are the bath salts and things of that nature, are those still prohibited?
That's about a 2-week long dissertation. The short answer to that is yes, they are. The longer answer is every time
They
the state
evolve,
or the feds prohibit a substance, the whiz kid chemists change one little piece of the formula for the substance, and then we have to play catch up and prohibit that
Right.
at a later time.
Right. So this would more comprehensively eliminate this as any kind of delivery device then?
It would be much better from an enforcement perspective if it was just as Councilman Rizzi suggests.
Thank you.
Okay, playing the devil's advocate, I'm a parent of a child that is 16 or younger that has a medical marijuana card. Are we prohibiting me as a parent from allowing that child to use vaporized marijuana?
No, because he has marijuana
He has
card.
a
No, not according to this.
That's right.
If we prohibit a minor under the age of 16 from using any kind of vaporized product, whether he has a medical marijuana card or not, we're prohibiting that, period, whether they've got a legal medical marijuana card or not.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, that issue is addressed in the last subsection in 273 on page 6 of the proposed ordinance. And that comes straight out of the Youth Tobacco Act.
And the other issue is, as long as he's in your house, we're never going to catch him anyway.
As I understand that provision, a parent in their own home or their residential premises, they could let their child do whatever they want.
All right, are there any other questions? Mary?
So just to clarify then, are we going to tighten up the language, just to kind of clarify, and it's not so ambiguous as to exactly what you're prohibiting or what you're allowing? Is that our next step in this?
If
Okay.
I understand the council's comments, council would like a change in the definition of these two different additional products, being vapor and alternative nicotine delivery product, to make it clear that the equipment used to vaporize any material, the possession, use, or furnishing or purchase of that equipment would also be prohibited under this ordinance.
Yep, absolutely. Well, at least for me, I don't want to speak for council, but
And I,
Well, I think if we all had questions about if it was speaking to the actual device, the equipment, I think it's a little ambiguous, so I think that's a good direction to go in. Thank you.
And this is still simply addressing minor possession anyway, right?
correct.
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
But with the exception of the furnishing part. So the furnishing is by a non-minor to a minor.
yes, right.
All right, we have a suggested motion on page 2, and I think if I'm hearing correctly, if we included and delivery systems in that motion, would that give you what you need for the first reading, or do you want to make the corrections for the second reading?
mean to delete the
Yeah.
alternative nicotine.
I
yeah.
think we can make changes between the first and second reading.
Okay.
I think I understand council's direction.
All right, is there a motion?
Yeah, I
then
move
on
the first reading.
I'll second.
Was that Kibble?
Yes.
Kibble and Rizzi, seconded. Any discussion, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. First reading carries, thank you. Consider approval of the first reading of an ordinance to amend section 58-221 and add provisions prohibiting the use of vapor products and alternative nicotine delivery products on school property. Again, Tim.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Council, this is the, kind of the dovetail. This is related to the tobacco products, vapor products issue. It pertains to the use of these tobacco, vapor, and alternative nicotine delivery products on school property. This is not limited just to minors, it is to any person. And it's important to note that there are several specific exceptions which come right out of the Youth Tobacco Act as well. These are in subsection D of 58-221. And this section would not apply to that part of school property consisting of outdoor areas, including but not limited to an open-air stadium, during the listed periods of time, which are Saturdays, Sundays, and other days when there are no regularly scheduled school hours, and after 6 p.m. on days during school hours, days with school hours. I kind of got the impression this is a throwback to the Friday night or Saturday football game. You could smoke, your parents could come to the game and smoke while they're in the stands watching somebody play football or outside.
Are there any questions?
I'm just kind of surprised that we're intervening without the schools making a request to protect their kids or whatever.
I had that same concern.
Yeah.
And the reason I proceeded with this is that the city has an ordinance on this issue already, and much of this comes straight out of the Youth Tobacco Act, which is statutory. I would think, but I didn't check, we could check to see if there are codes of conduct or other regulations that the schools have in place regarding the use of tobacco and other similar products by students on school property as well.
I actually thought that theirs were more restrictive than even this is, personally, but I just thought that they should have at least been invited to comment on this.
Well, Chief Collins, didn't this issue come up recently in one of the high schools with THC in a different form?
I have heard of this issue coming up, particularly at East, and the sheriff's office has dealt with the problem of the e-cigarettes and the difficulty in determining what is in the device.
Any other questions?
I'll make,
Go ahead.
yeah, I'll make the motion then to approve the first reading of the ordinance amending section 58-221.
Support.
Moved by Kramer, supported by Rizzi. Are there any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, no. Motion carries on the first reading, thank you. Now, consider approval of the first reading of an ordinance to amend Chapter 22 and add mobile food vending. Once again, Mr. Willem.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. All right, there's quite a bit of material in here. I don't want to spend a lot of time going through things if council doesn't want me to. This is your mobile food vending or food truck ordinance. This has been through the Planning Commission, and there were some comments that were in requested revisions that pertained mainly to clarifications of text, and there was more substantive discussion on where these trucks would be, or vehicles, or mobile units, mobile food vending units would be appropriate. Generally, this is a licensing scheme that has two components, one for the operator of the unit and one for, and that presumes that they would be on public property, and there's a second license for private property owners in the B2 and B3 districts that want to invite a mobile food vending unit to operate on their property. There's a detailed application process, review, bases for denial, a decision-making process, an appeal process. There are processes for revoking or suspending a mobile food vending license on both the vendor side and the sponsor side, being the property owner for in a private property setting. The heart of this is in the regulations regarding what they can do when they are operating. In other words, where can it be located? Can you have chairs? Can you have signs? Can you have music? Can you have lights? All of that stuff is contained, I think it's in 22-249. It does provide for penalties, impoundment of the vehicle or unit. And the issues that I would like to hear from council on, and this is explained in the agenda note, is if this proceeds and is approved, while I wouldn't ask for it at the first reading, but following the second reading, if it is approved, we would be looking to consider resolutions setting the locations, setting fees, and those fees would be for both the vendor and the sponsor, original application, renewal application, and the licensing fee. So the city will be incurring a cost anytime an application is submitted. There's a review process, a decision has to be made, but then there's the licensing for the period of time, and the two different types of licenses have different licensing periods. The vendors have 2 6-month periods that are broken up April through October, and then November through March, thinking that the summertime, the period that covers the summertime months would be the more attractive of those. The sponsor side will have 1 full year licensing period, and it was always, I think I've mentioned this, I forget if it was to this body or to the planning commission, that the sponsor license fee should be fairly low because those are your people that already own property within your community and are paying taxes. So there should be some recognition of that. I think the people that are coming in and operating a mobile food vending unit, you may want to consider a slightly higher licensing fee to kind of use the term balance the playing field between people that are providing food service within the city.
Mike had a question.
Tim, does this ordinance address the limit of the number of licenses that the city can or will approve?
No.
All right, because my concern is, I mean, if you have 2 6-month periods, and I'm looking long-term, say at some point you develop volunteer park, you start hosting soccer tournaments, whatever, you get a bunch of people in the city during like one weekend. I know in soccer they can't come, and they have like 20,000 people coming into Canton for soccer games, and I mean, it's all over the place. If there is a limit, and that's something maybe we can address later, but I'm just concerned that you could have all these food trucks or vendors coming in, as long as they pay their licensing fee, they have the right to be, say, at Volunteer Park or around that area. And I'm concerned that you may have just so many food trucks in for a weekend that obviously you might have some parking concerns. I know that's addressed somewhat in this, and that's something we're going to talk about later. But I'm just concerned that you may get an overabundance of food trucks in for one weekend or 2 weekends during the summer month, where you really have no control over how many licenses the city should approve. How is that going to be addressed?
So I did consider putting a cap on the number of licenses that could be issued at one particular time. I think you have a practical limitation based on the available spaces within the city. I don't know that And I didn't feel that it was, not knowing how much interest there is in this particular type of activity, I didn't address that issue. I didn't feel it was a limitation that was appropriate at this point. In addition, there's 2 points that I want to make. I tried to keep this simple and straightforward. I don't want the city to become the food police or the mobile food police. We're going to rely very heavily on the county health department licensing scheme. A vendor would have to get that license first, then they have to comply with some of the more specific issues contained within this ordinance that the city is interested in regarding location and certain aspects of the operation that may affect the city and the surrounding uses. In addition, there is some flexibility within this ordinance to address mobile food vending through a special event permit, which is going to be encouraged. So we know that we have some of these events within the city. So Pumpkin Fest, and there is a distancing requirement from these events. So you have to be 500 feet from the event unless you have written approval from the sponsor of the event. So if there were a soccer tournament or a baseball tournament in McCaddy, they could ask for and seek approval for more food trucks if they felt there was a need for that or demand for that. We would evaluate that through the special event permit process, likely be looking at a lot of this stuff and impose conditions through the special event on the food service that would be applicable through this. But that would be another way to do it as well.
That's my follow-up. I mean, what happens if you do have a major event happening? I'm more concerned about park areas once the parks are developed. If you have an organization, for instance, like a soccer organization, say, okay, we're going to host this huge tournament at Volunteer Park or around this area. Who has the say as far as what food vendors, I mean, I understand if they have the licenses and everyone has the license, but who has the final say as far as which food vendors they want versus?
It's going to be the event sponsor.
It's going to be the event sponsor? Okay.
If they get a special event permit, they're going to control the food service. And we will have to maybe learn about this as we go through it. One of the things that we haven't been very focused on in dealing with special events, at least from my perspective, is the geographical footprint of a special event. Basically, that's going to have to be outlined because you're starting, when you have a special event approval, you have a distancing requirement for food service. You can, within your special event footprint, control the food service within it. If there is no special event permit, then anybody with a vendor permit is going to be able to set up on the permitted spaces located on public property.
Good. Glenn?
Yeah, I personally prefer the market be the one that drives how many people participate, and if it turns out that that we're just getting inundated by food trucks, we could address a paring down of that kind of activity. You said that there's 2 seasons. Is there a differential in how much each season costs? I would think
for council to decide.
Yeah, I mean, it would seem like a sweetener for the off-season, the winter months, just to try to entice people to come in would make sense, quite honestly, but, okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Questions? I have a suggested motion on page 3 on the first reading. It's a motion to approve the first reading of the mobile food vending ordinance.
I'll make the motion,
Thank you, Maggie.
I'll support.
First Will,
now that you've read it.
second. I didn't hear a second. Second from Zedakis. Thank you very much. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no. And that motion passes on the first reading. All right, our final action item today is to consider approval of the first reading of an ordinance to amend Chapter 2, Administration, by addition of Article 8, Review Fee Escrow Deposits. I have Lynn and Tim. Who's going to go?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. Council, This is an ordinance designed to properly place the cost of extraordinary costs incurred by the city on applicants that are looking for approvals or that require the city to take and incur these extraordinary costs. I've been asked by numerous people what this would apply to, and the one issue that I think is applicable is some of the recent requests for utility dedication. I think given the circumstances surrounding these requests, it requires an additional cost, and if the city's going to incur that cost, it should be borne by the applicant that is looking for the approval. And this provides for a fair amount of discretion in the city manager to determine when that deposit should be requested and made and required. It also provides some discretion with the city manager to seek consultant help and department heads to determine the estimated cost. I did include a minimum escrow deposit fee of $1,500. And that may seem a little high, but when you get into consultant fees at, at or around $100 an hour, it doesn't take long to go through $1,500. And once we work against that, we keep records, we're going to be putting that money aside. There won't be any processing or any action or review on anything until the deposit is made. All other fees are paid. This does not replace your already existing fee schedule for different reviews, particularly the zoning type requests. There is an accounting process. The city works against this. They keep track. Once it reaches $500, the city would then make a request that they replenish this amount, and there would be a rationale for why they're asking for what they're asking for. In other words, it's another estimate on how much time is left. So if an applicant were unhappy with the decision made or the amount, they could appeal to city council on this, because the city manager would be making that decision in the first place. We will refund any amounts that are not used. So we're keeping track of the amounts. If it is not used, it's refunded. One of the things that I've encountered is there are sometimes unclaimed amounts on deposit. This makes it clear that if we make an effort and follow through with the appropriate notice that your money is here, come and get it, or we're sending it to you and it returns to us, if it's unclaimed for a year, it's forfeit to the city. This is a bookkeeping matter, so that you can avoid having to continue to hold that on your books or go through the state unclaimed property process, or determine whether it is sheets to the state. So if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer these. I do think this is an appropriate ordinance for the city. I'm not sure it will come up all the time, but I think it's a good way to keep the city from incurring extraordinary costs when they should be borne by somebody else.
Okay, Glenn has a question.
I didn't know, or I didn't see anything that was an appeal process in here to insist on a validation of justification for the fee escrow deposit being employed on them.
It's right here. G, all such appeals shall be in writing and made no later than 30 days after the discipline action.
Oh, what's this?
Page 3, G.
Okay, G? Okay, thanks. Let me read that real quick. I must have just skimmed right over that.
We'll let Ms. Kurzweil has a question.
Is this,
no.
is this intended to supplement
All such appeals.
or work with performance bonds?
It's a very similar concept.
Okay.
And I think the next step with our zoning ordinance process through the planning commission and ultimately through city council, once we've got that established, I think we'll be looking at cleaning up the performance guarantee and the deposit issues. And this involves different departments and working hand in hand, trying to make sure that the city isn't going to get left holding the bag, the monetary bag, and have to pay money to finish a development or pay money that it really shouldn't have to, that really is to somebody else's benefit.
What I like about this is, I think, my personal opinion is that this is a real good model that could be used to supplement the performance bond issues that, I mean, because I'm kind of a bug on the performance bonds. But I think that this is just a really, really nice model that you could use to, then you can really draw that line and say, okay, performance bond was 5,000, and now we've got an escrow agreement for costs, so it's real clear to the third party that's coming in, when you're returning funds, you can return all the performance bond monies, but now you've got an accounting on the escrow side. I think this is really, really, and I do think that part needs to be cleaned up on the performance bonds, and I think you've got a great model to work with right here. This is good, this is good.
I think we will be applying this to the fee schedule as well.
Yeah.
So in other words, if we have some idea that a particular request, and these typically come up in the zoning context, is going to take so much hours of planning, there's going to be a deposit up front. It's going to be a very similar concept to getting money up front so that the city doesn't have to take the risk of having to go get the money after the service has already been provided. So yes, this is a first step. We'll be looking at expanding this into the other aspects.
Well, this is a good step.
Harvey?
Go ahead, Joe.
So, one of the things that you mentioned this will be used for is utility dedication, correct? It could be, potentially.
This is going to be another one where we have to learn how to use it.
Okay.
And it really is a decision that should be made by the city manager.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it really should only be required when we know that we are going to be incurring what are considered to be extraordinary or unusual expenses on behalf of a particular applicant or somebody requesting an approval from the city.
Yeah, and I too as well think this is good to set some boundaries. Of course, we don't want to spend a lot of resources on a project that's not going to be moving forward. At the same breath, I want to add, the reason why I asked about the utility dedication is because ultimately, in my opinion, if everything's clean, all the right documents are there, utility dedication can really be a win-win for the city. Win-win for the city and win-win for the applicant. So specifically, if, let's say, you have a site that's interested in pursuing dedication, to begin even conversations, would that be the first step? They have to put a deposit down, or could we give them the requirement? Is that going to be the first requirement? Is that
No, the first requirement when someone comes in and is interested in a utility dedication is we meet with them, give them the checklist, and go over what the requirements are and ask them how many of the documents that they already have,
Okay.
what documents we may already have, and then figure out at that point where we have to go from here. We've got several different subdivisions right now that are partially through, either because they don't have the utility information that they need, they don't have the documents that are required, they don't want to spend the money to get the documents that are necessary, or they don't have the money to spend to get the documents that are necessary. So we're working through a lot of different processes. But once they get those documents, we still have to end up paying our engineers to review those documents. We have to pay Tim to review those documents, which is not considered part of the general retainer agreement.
Right.
So we incur additional expenses.
Right, okay, and that answers my question. I just want to make sure it's not going to be an upfront requirement. We'd still have the meetings, we still give,
Right.
and then let them make the decisions going forward. But yeah, like I said, I think this is a great, Tim, Lynn, good job putting this together. Thank you.
Any other questions? Are you guys all set down there?
Yes.
Okay. There's a motion at the bottom of page 1?
Yeah, I'll make the motion to approve the first reading of the review fee escrow deposit ordinance, adding section 2-301 and 2-302 of the City of South Lyon Code of Ordinances.
All right, Keel makes the motion, is supported by Kramer. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Next on our agenda, we have a discussion of downtown. Do we have any discussion on that this evening? Maggie?
Lynn, could you tell everybody about that organization that will match funds?
Are you talking about Patronosity?
Yes, yes.
Patronosity is a MEDC sponsored grant website that allows you to go online. I've actually talked about it to the council once before. We're looking at using it for the Parks and Rec. You can use it for any public project. You create a project, you place it online. It's crowdsourcing, crowdfunding, but it's sponsored by the MEDC, which is the Michigan Economic Development Corporation. Allows you, depending upon the type of project, to do up to $100,000 in matching funding from the MEDC based on what your project size is and what the project is. And raise funds from private sources, individuals, businesses, things like that, and then the state will match it.
Are we going to participate in that? Or,
The Parks and Rec is planning on using it as soon as they finish their Parks and Rec phasing for Volunteer Park. They're going to use it for all of the different phases for that. I know the Cultural Arts Commission has considered doing it, and I'm meeting with
Okay.
them on Wednesday night with their regularly scheduled meeting. Other than that, it just depends on which other organizations and different areas we need to, as we look at other grant projects, we will use it for funding different projects throughout the city.
if I wanted to start a project, let's say that I did, and I wanted to be in Paul Baker Park, and I wanted to get some funding to repair the fountain. Is that something that it could be used for, or, council would have to approve it, but I'm just,
That is something it could be used for because that would be considered a public space, public project.
and then get a sculpture piece over there. If something was presented to council for a plan, and then the costs were worked out, then I could just go on my way and look for people to privately fund it, and then,
Right.
is that what it could be used for?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, it's a city park, so wouldn't you want to be speaking with them?
Yeah, most likely you'd want to work in hand with the Parks and Rec Commission. I know
Yeah,
they've
with-
got plans.
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying, though?
Right.
Is that we can, as long as everybody's on the same page, it could be used for that. So if there was a sculpture piece that somebody wanted to, a location, they could come and present it to, whether it's on public property or, now, what about private property?
Cannot be used for private, can only be used for public projects.
Okay. Even though let's say, for example, a mural on a private building, it would be viewed by the public.
It's only for
It's
public
only
projects.
for public property. Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else with comments or questions or discussion on downtown? All right, we'll close that, and we'll go on to the manager's report, please.
Okay, I have several things. In your packet, you will have a printout from Bob. I wanted to point out, a couple of meetings ago, you had approved him to spend up to $60,000 on the one repair at the Water's Edge complex. He actually ended up doing two repairs there. You had authorized up to $60,000. He was able to get both of the repairs done for less than that $60,000. So I wanted to congratulate and thank Bob and his departments for all the hard work that they did and their ability to get the work done under the amount.
He's our hero.
The reminder that the strategic planning workshop is this weekend, starts at 8 o'clock at the Brookwood Farms Clubhouse. We will break for a short lunch. The department heads and Tim will be joining us at 11 o'clock. Lou Bender will be our facilitator. The Parks and Rec Commission will be coming to the council either at the next meeting or the first meeting in April to present the new Parks Master Plan for approval.
Fabulous.
That needs to be submitted to the state. That's something that has to be done every 5 years, just as the city's master plan does. The mayor is on jury duty this week. Had hoped to be out of it, but we have a Safe Routes to School meeting on Wednesday morning, and they were hoping to have a member of council join us. That meeting time is at, the right time. Meeting is at 9 o'clock on Wednesday. Is there a member of council that would be able to sit in for the mayor since he has jury duty?
How long a meeting?
Shouldn't be more than an hour. It's just an update meeting on where the grant stands.
Yeah, I'll do it.
You're the Mayor Pro Tem.
Step up.
Where's that being held?
That's being held here at City Hall in one of the front conference rooms. The Good Friday holiday will be happening before our next city council meeting, so just wanted to remind everyone that we will be closed on Friday, March 26th for Good Friday, and Easter Sunday is that weekend, or I guess it's Friday, March 25th. And then the last thing, I was approached this weekend about whether the city would consider making all of the city's parks and public properties tobacco and nicotine free, to where you can't use any tobacco products. Thought it was a timely thing to bring up since we are discussing tobacco and alternative tobacco products. If that's something the council would consider, apparently the Public Works Department is picking up a considerable amount of cigarette butts at all of our playground areas, parks, and sporting fields, and wondered if that's something we would want to consider looking into, making all of our public properties tobacco-free.
Anyone have any feelings on that?
It's an illegal activity. I don't support that. I mean,
Well, can you do that, can you do it at a park? Do we have the authority?
how much air do you need? I mean, I don't
No,
think,
just- it's
I don't
a
think that
general
it's
question.
appropriate that people are obnoxious with it, but it is a legal activity. And I'm, as far as being able to enforce it, you can't have your dog make a mess and not clean up. And I'm thinking that that probably doesn't get tracked as closely as what it could either.
Well, my thought is, I'm kind of leaning towards what Glenn said. I mean, when it comes to kids, I'm all for having these regulations about sale and use of tobacco with minors. But when it comes to parents, hey, that's your own business. If you want to smoke,
I don't understand it
I
with all
don't
the
think-
evidence about how bad it is, but it's still a legal activity.
I don't think we should be in the business of regulating adults and their behavior. So,
Well, I'm sorry.
Mary had a comment.
Go ahead, Mary.
I just curious, do we happen to know how many cigarette dispenser, I guess those little trash bins that were for the cigarettes, how many of those do we have in the park, if any?
None for cigarettes.
We actually don't, we have garbage cans. But
Okay.
we do have litter bags for
The
the
dogs.
dogs.
I've seen that.
situation, yeah.
So, I don't know, maybe that's a thought to add, just as an extra emphasis that we don't discourage smoking, but we would encourage you to throw away your cigarette butts in the dispenser. I don't know if that would
I
help.
don't have a problem with us discouraging it, just not making it illegal.
yeah.
No, I agree with that.
Glenn had a comment. I'm sorry,
Well,
Mike had a
I
comment.
don't even know if we have the authority to do that.
I have to look.
I don't think it's worth spending city resources to even look into, in my opinion.
Okay.
I mean,
If you asked for a sense of the council, I think you got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maggie, did you want to weigh in on that?
No, I agree with you, Mayor Pro Tem.
All right.
Anything else?
That's all I
Yeah,
have.
I had a question,
Sure, go ahead.
just a quick question. How are you doing on your search? Just-
We have quite a few applicants.
Okay.
Quite a few people that can't read directions, so that will weed out several of the applicants.
Disqualifier.
But we'll see how things come on Friday when the deadline for both positions are.
Well, do you think you might want to extend the deadline or is there somebody there
I
you're?
think we have good applicants for both
Okay.
positions.
Okay.
We have probably 20 applicants for the administrative assistant position, less than 10 that can follow directions.
All right.
Well, they have to work with you, so I mean,
All right, let's move on then to council comments. We'll start with Glenn.
Last Wednesday, the Cable Commission had a little demonstration in one of the little meeting rooms over here. A lot of very diverse crowd in there, churches and little service groups and stuff. It was real nice. The library, everybody was very geeked about what was going on. They're looking forward to the transition into the new hardware that we're getting, hardware-software package. The intent of the meeting was really to let people know that there's a genuine and large need to be able to create a library, and it's they're trying to stress the fact that it's not difficult to create these little snippets and things that can be really valuable, and they don't have to be any specific times. They can end up chunking in a whole bunch of different things to make up room between, like the benchmark things will be city council meetings and that they're going to want to typically start on an hour and things. So a lot of this stuff can end up being advisory things, or there's just a host of entertainment to news to information that as well as people's vacations. I mean, they're really reaching out to pretty much anybody. And I was wondering, Lynn, do you know, did that PO end up going to the vendor yet?
PO went to the vendor and I are having some disagreements. They want paid in advance, and that's against city policy, so we will figure out tomorrow where exactly things stand.
Okay, but it's been suggested that it should be no more than a week or two once the PO is delivered, so that'll be a very exciting thing. That's all I had. Thanks.
Thank you, Mary.
Mayor Pro Tem, thank you for stepping up twice in one night. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Also, I was at the Cable Commission meeting as well, and I thought the turnout was fantastic. There's so many people who have an interest in this avenue, this channel. So good stuff from South Lyon, and also the Easter egg hunt, the egg stuffing. There was so many people that came out today to volunteer stuff eggs, and you couldn't even fit them all in one room. That's how great it was. So good stuff from South Lyon. Thank you guys. Have a good night.
Lynn, so the vision session, that's open to the public, correct?
It is open to the public.
Okay. So that's at Brookwood Farms?
Yes, at the clubhouse at Brookwood Farms.
At 8 o'clock, and I would encourage everybody from the public to attend. I think this is going to be a great activity to go over our goals. I know I have a few. I'm sure my fellow council members have goals, and we can all come to some common agreements and really move the city forward, so I'm really looking forward to that. And people from the public, if you want to attend, please, we'd love to hear your feedback, so please attend. Also, I thought it was pretty nice that we're going to Brookwood Farms. I didn't even really, when I heard that, I thought that was good. It wasn't even a place I even thought of, and it's kind of an out-of-the-box idea, and I think that's going to be perfect. I've been there before. It's a nice little area, so thank you for that, Lynn. Also, regarding what we passed today with the alternative, what do we call this? Alternative nicotine dispensary or vaping. City Attorney Wilhelm, thank you for putting that together. I know we just requested that at the last meeting, so that was really timely for you, and I appreciate you getting on top of that really quick. I think this is an important issue for our community, not only for any potential vapor shops that come in, but we do have, I don't want to have it unnoticed that we do have a lot of establishments within our city that sell these products, be it CVS or gas stations or party stores. So it's not just these kind of dispensaries that come in catering to this specific item. There's also very many other places that you wouldn't even think of that sell it. So I'm sure, Lloyd, your people will be on the lookout for this once we eventually get it going, the final ordinance. Also, I noticed that I want to give a little credit to South Lyon East and South Lyon High School Key Club members. On March 1st, 75 students from National Honor Society, they filled 11,428 bags and raised $2,400 partnering with the Kiwanis Club, and that was for Kids Against Hunger. So to see these kids go out there, stuffing these bags, working side by side, it's a really positive message for the community. So great job, kids. Also wanted to give credit to our local wrestling club, the South Lyon Mat Cats. They had 13 state placers at a big tournament in Flint, and the kids' third grade and under team came in second in the states. So it was a huge accomplishment. To have the second best youth wrestling club in the state is such a good thing for our area. So very proud of the South Lyon Mat Cats. And if anybody's driven by, I mean everybody has, but if you haven't noticed, Big B Coffee looks really nice outside. Looks like all of the renovations are complete. So just wanted to give a little shout out to them. And finally, we did just have an election for the presidential primary, and I was greeted by so many nice election workers. It was just it's something's going on this year. It was very friendly. Everybody was they're always friendly, but it was just very nice this year, and everybody did a great job. So I want to thank all of the election workers for their hard work, putting in a long day, helping all of our residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, I had an opportunity to review our bill from our attorney regarding the property exception and the tax tribunal matter and the criminal complaint that was filed. And I'm a little concerned with the number of hours that's being billed to the city in response to the events that took place. I would appreciate if you could separate the number of hours you spent in relation to the criminal complaints. We have an idea, because I'm sure this bill has been presented to the city to pay. And that includes the criminal complaint that was filed against you and I believe Lynn. And I would like to know how much of your bill was for that criminal complaint, if you can do it. It doesn't have to be now, but I would like that.
I don't think that the only time that would be, that I would bill to the city related to that matter would be if the city's interests were at issue.
Right, what about your
The
personal?
extent that it was my own issue, that time is not included in any bill.
Okay, but I'd like to know what that was, if possible, because at some point, I mean, I don't know if your firm had to pay for it, or if you had to pay it out of your pocket, or at some point you might present that to the city for payment, but I'd like to know how much that amount is, because I have concerns about that. And I'd also like to know, Lynn, if you had to hire an attorney, what your attorney fees were in relation to that criminal complaint.
Okay.
Thank you.
That it?
Yep.
Maggie?
Yes, I'm going to respond to that. First of all, I don't know, it wasn't a criminal complaint that was filed. All I can tell you is that it was a request for investigation. That's a very, very different thing from a criminal complaint. So I know the paper's gotten it wrong. Mike has gotten it wrong. So I can only tell you what I did, and that was a request for investigation. Second of all, I did ask that this matter be put on, Board of Review matter be put on the agenda, so that me and my attorney could have come into City Council, could have met with Tim. I asked on January 20th, and John Galis denied that request. So I made every effort to do the right thing and to try to come to City Council and to talk certain issues out, and was not given an opportunity to do it. I'm not sure why, but, I try to follow the channels and try to do the right thing. So leave it at that. My council comments are, number one is, and also I believe that Mr. Galis reported to the paper that he had wished that I had come to City Council first. What Mr. Galis didn't tell the paper is that I did make a request and that he denied the request. So, but anyway, I would like to, and I have the email if anybody's interested.
Let's get on with council comments.
So
please.
council comments are, number one is I would like to congratulate Phil Weipert on being Person of the Year. I don't think anybody else deserves this award any better than Phil Weipert. But also I'd like to give a huge thank you to his wife, Pam, who has been extremely gracious with sharing Phil with the community. I really think that this award goes to both Phil and Pam. Second of all, I'd like to thank the Salem South Lyon Library, who had a fabulous jazz quartet on Saturday. It was absolutely packed over at the library. It was a fabulous quartet. Larry Smith was there. He's in alto sax. He's been a mentor to George Benson. He's played with Aretha Franklin. He also does sax down in Detroit and plays at Baker's along with Greg Cook, who played upright bass. He's well known in Detroit, plays at Harmony House. Oliver Neville was there, who is a fabulous guitar player who has played with Jack Maduff, and it was just absolutely incredible. Also, the Culture Arts Commission is on Friday, April 15th. They are having their show right here. It's going to be here in the South Lyon lobby. April 15th from 7 to 9, they're having an art exhibit. It's free and open to the public. And back by popular demand on April 27th is going to be the Poets are coming back. And they're going to be at the Three Monk Brewery. So if you missed the first poet reading, you really, really have to come back and see the second one. This is absolutely fabulous. So those are my comments. And Bob, thank you very much for getting the lights in over at Paul Baker Park. They're up, and the lights over in Whipple Street. Thank you.
My council comment is that I didn't know I was going to be chairing this meeting until I sat down here today, so I want to thank the staff and the council for helping to make it a very smooth, easygoing meeting. Now, lastly on our agenda today is a closed session for a strategy discussion regarding some of our union negotiations. This is permitted under the Open Meetings Act. It requires a motion to go into closed session and a roll call vote. Can I get that motion?
At 8H.
Nope, different section.
Section
8C.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. I'll make that motion for a closed session pursuant to Section 8C for strategy and negotiation sessions connected with the negotiation of a collective bargaining
Okay,
agreement.
motion by Kivel,
second.
second by Kramer. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Just really quick, I did have this in my council comments, and I forgot to mention it, that as Mayor Pro Tem Waddell mentioned, this is permitted by the Open Meetings Act. Normally, I am opposed to closed meetings, but since this is allowed under the Open Meetings Act for specific reasons, strategic negotiations, I'm all for this. So just wanted to let that known. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Will the clerk call the roll, please?
Kivel?
Yes.
Bedakis?
Yes.
Rizzi?
Yes.
Waddell?
Yes.
Kramer?
Yes.
Kurzweil?
Yes.
Motion carries. We'll be in recess for just a moment while we clear the room.